and they get the performances they need to get a win over a pesky Detroit Pistons team. It's all coming up on today's edition of Postcast. Postcast is your show after every Jazz game with your interaction, your thoughts, your comments coming from Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, all of the different channels. So feel free to jump aboard. The Jazz today on a Sunday afternoon win over the Detroit Pistons. They jump out to a 9-0 lead early. They led it 32-13. At one point, the Pistons closed on a 7-2 run. Donovan Mitchell had 13 first-quarter points to carry the Jazz. By halftime, the Jazz led it 57-50. 15 for Donovan, 13 for Mike Conley, and 10 for Jordan Clarkson at the half. But the Jazz three-point shooting, which was 6 of 12 in the first quarter, quieted down in the second quarter to go 2 of 8 from 3 in that second quarter. The game gets tight in the third quarter. The Jazz led it by 15 at the first time out. They still led it to 11 by the second time out, but by the end of the third quarter, it is 74-68. And the Jazz three-point shooting on that quarter goes 0 of 7. So the Jazz suddenly had gone 2 of 15 from 3 in the second and third quarters combined. It gets down to being a 5-point ball game. The Jazz then lead it by 6 as they win at 96-86. The Jazz win it. They end up getting an extra 3 more threes in the fourth quarter. They also go to the line. They make 9 fourth quarter free throws. That was probably the best part of this one, as they attacked the rim and got to the line in the fourth quarter of this ball game, which they had not been doing. And despite shooting just 42% from the field and 31% from 3, the Jazz able to win. Defensively, the Jazz were really good all night. Detroit scores 86 points. They score just 33 points, or they shoot just 33%. They shoot 24% on the game. The Jazz defensive rating tonight was a 95.6. So the offense actually turned out to not be very good at a 107. Detroit kind of pesky, plays that way, will probably do that to you along the way. Shot distribution today by the Jazz. They got 33% of their shots at the rim and 40% of their shots as threes, with 13% of their shots being corner threes. So that's pretty darn good. And down at 26% of their shots being mid-range jumpers. You have to like that. The Jazz end up taking 23 shots in the mid-range, which seems like an awful lot, but only 2 of them were long twos. 21 of them were around the basket in that floater zone. Jordan Clarkson, Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell all live in that area. But some of the same problems that the Jazz had against New York and Brooklyn showed up. A not very good half-court game today by the Jazz. Their offense was not efficient in the half-court. They were pretty good in transition, which is what they have been throughout or taking advantage of transition, but they were not particularly good in the half court again today. They were against Milwaukee, but they were not again today. Some of that just comes down to Bogdanovich is not making shots. He was 3 of 11, 0 for 5. Royce missed his 2. George Niang, 1 for 5. And so if some of those guys aren't making shots, it's hard for us to be a super good half-court offensive team. That's largely what we're predicated on. So, and give Detroit credit. They play awfully hard. All right, those are my thoughts on this one. It's a solid win. We weren't good in the half-court. A lot of things that kind of feel like they can be a lot better. Lost our vibe in the third quarter. Stopped moving the basketball. Stopped pushing it around, but able to hold on, and we're never really in doubt. 3-2 on the road trip. And I just say, by the way, league-wide, no one's playing great right now. Maybe the only one is Phoenix, but it is hard to tell really who is good. Let's go to the Periscope to start it off. Michael says the minivan is really struggling. He is. George is playing a few less minutes and then shooting a little less well. He came in 3 of 11 on catch and shoots. Like, if he makes 1 of those or 2 of those, he's right back. I mean, he's playing so little that it's a small margin for him on what the difference between a good game and a bad game. Dustin Needs over on YouTube says Quinn seemed very frustrated with the team in the third quarter. I mean, probably rightfully so. They scored 17 points. They got 8. It was kind of an ugly third quarter. They got outscored 18-17 in that third quarter. They stopped running and they stopped moving the ball. I mean, Quinn wants them to run. He wants them to play with a pass. He talked to us on the pregame show about 0.5 seconds. You know, when you get the ball, you have 0.5 seconds to decide. You're either going to drive, you're going to pass, or you're going to shoot. And we weren't doing that at all late in the third quarter. The last few games have proven that Clarkson is vital to the team. I mean, to have a guy who can just come off the bench and score is vital. I would say I do think that Jordan's part of the lack of ball movement issue, and it would be nice if Jordan would sometimes move the ball instead of always driving every single time. Like at some point, see the other guys first instead of every time putting it on the deck. I think that would help out things a little bit. Ryan Johnson over on Facebook says, feels like this team is still banking on those foul calls that they think they deserve instead of getting back on D. A lot of foul arguing in the third quarter. Can this be addressed or fixed? I mean, I think you address that with film and you make them see what it looks like and show them that, that they're not helping themselves out any, I think is the only way to be able to show that, Ryan. But it does, the guys want calls and that second it takes to yell at the official is the difference between getting back in transition. I had a note to start the night tonight. We were 28th in the league defensively after a miss. So we're not getting back in transition. We're not defending very well off of misses. Daniel says, we got to play defense to win. Been saying that all year. Go Jazz. Well, we certainly played defense tonight. And that's an exceptional defensive performance by the Jazz. Josiah, we are bad at guessing what teams will struggle with. I don't know what tonight is. Tonight might be the first game that went almost exactly like I thought it was going to go. Otherwise, I have missed every game all year. I completely agree with you. I haven't got a single game that has gone kind of as expected. Tonight, I would say, hey, we jumped up early. We were up 32-12. You kind of cruised. They made a run. You just knocked them off. We weren't great tonight. And I pointed that out with some numbers. I wouldn't be worried about, this is what you're supposed to do. You go to Detroit and win. I was wondering if there's anyone on the bench who could have played in the third to give the team a boost. It's a good question. I don't, few things here, Matt. There's two parts of that question. One is you got to bench somebody. So that's a big deal. Right? You're breaking trust with a player at that moment in time. And are you willing to do that? I think that's part one. I think you have to be kind of really concerned with whether or not you're willing to do that. And then part two of that is I don't know who that is, right? It's Mia Oni, maybe. Jarrell Brantley's not with the team. Juwan Morgan's in protocol. So, yeah, I don't really know who that would be that you would suddenly look to say, oh, well, I'm going to go play that guy instead and be willing to bench somebody. Benching someone's a big deal in this league. We all think it's cute and we do it in fantasy and, we do it in our board games or whatever, or, you do it in your Xbox or it's a big deal to go back in the locker room after you bench the player. So, and Gordy Chiesa used to always have a great quote. If you're going to bench one guy, you better bench two or else you're blaming it all on one guy. So I think that's something. Steve Campbell is bogey hurt. He had the wrist surgery. So and it's significant. He hasn't played since March. So he does not look as comfortable as he usually does. I think that is certainly true. And we'll see. Ainsley wants to know if Bogey could go back to wearing the wrist guard. Well, he didn't wear it last game and he was great. He didn't wear it this game and he wasn't great. He doesn't like to wear things on his body. So, if he's not comfortable and confident with it, then probably not worth having him wear it, right? Thoughts on all of these teams getting down to 8 available players? I mean, the virus is real. People need to take precautions. People aren't. We're selfish as a country. And so we're individualists. We're not collective. We're not a collective country. We never have been. That's not the culture. And so we have a hard time with this. That's a bigger, deeper philosophical thought. But those countries that have a collective essence to who they are and how they view the world have handled this pandemic, better than those that are individualistic. That's how we are. We're not controlling this at all. It's running rampant. It's leaked into the NBA. I don't think, I'm doing everything I can to try to not get it, but I don't have any confidence that I can do that. So I think we're all on the same path on that one, even those of us that are trying to be extra cautious, and it only takes one person to not be extra cautious to get it and then even be less cautious about dealing with it to then pass it on to a bunch of us. So I think that's, the NBA has been struck by this as well. Is Mike on the path to possible all-star bid or too stacked on the West? Margaret Montgomery, is Bogey's problem mainly the wrist, a major problem, another surgery? I'm not a doctor. He's clearly not stroking it as well as he usually is. He's not off by a lot, right? Our sample size is 10 games now, but like I think it's probably 3 or 4 makes here or there, and all of a sudden is back at it. So I wouldn't be too worried about it. Margaret also wants to know about turnovers. I look at opponent steals, and it's 10 again. So you're right. We allow double-digit live ball turnovers tonight is not ideal. Do we see Shaq Harrison sometime soon? Same thing. Like for whom? For whom? Like who are you putting him in there for? Brandon Whiteside, Jekyll and Hyde team. We need more of an offensive game plan. We aren't making threes. Also, we need Shaq to play with the backups he can defend. For whom? Like who's and why do we love Shaq? Like he can't shoot. Or has not shown a high shooting percentage in his career. So it's interesting. We're 6-4. Nobody has been very consistent all year around the league. Before we wrap up, tip of the hat to Rudy Gobert and Derek Favors tonight. 14 rebounds in 17 minutes by Faves, 20 rebounds in 34 minutes by Rudy Gobert. That is Postcast. Locked On Jazz, back with you tomorrow. Have a good one.